Everyone knows about relationships now, but the only true wisdom is it knowing you know nothing. I made a video about relationships and how these days they often seem to have become a transaction. Even though I made the video twice, liked the result, and spent time reading and researching before recording it, I kept thinking afterwards, maybe this isn't really my subject. Nowadays, everyone has an opinion about everything, and I think that for some topics, life experience matters. What do I really know about relationships? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I'm 25 years old and I feel less prepared than ever. Theory does not always help you understand people in everyday life. Feelings are confusing. They cloud your judgment. Once you become emotionally involved with someone, things become far more complicated in your mind, even when you know perfectly well that the person or the relationship is not going anywhere. There is a moment in Alice in Wonderland where Alice gets lost and she sits down and starts wondering why she has so much good advice but cannot follow it herself. She questions whether she should stay where she is, lost and alone, hoping someone might find her, or whether she should simply move on. Staying seems absurd because who would ever find her in the middle of nowhere? For a moment, she regrets her choices and thinks that if she had listened earlier, she wouldn't be in that situation. Yet in the film, she's never truly alone. There are animals, strange creatures, and all sorts of being around her. They may not always be able to help, but they care. I cannot remember exactly what happens after that scene, but I finished both the book and the film, and despite all the madness and confusion, she survives and takes valuable experiences from those strange and complicated situations. I sometimes think that the more good advice a young person has to give, the less likely they are to follow it themselves. For some things, I do not think we should take advice too seriously from people who have never have been married, reduce men and women to simple formulas. Men are A, women are B, and that's that. No, knowing what is right is not enough. We often see our mistakes clearly and still continue making them. And I understand that many of the things we hear online contain some truth. I've listened to good content about men, relationships, manipulation, dishonesty, and the games people sometimes play. In some ways, it opened my eyes to reality. You cannot blindly trust every man, but equally, you cannot blindly trust every 25-year-old woman on the internet talking about the subjects in the most immature way possible. That's why I think there is value in listening to older people. Of course, not every older person is wise or good. Age alone does not create wisdom, but life experience gives people more stories to tell, and those stories often contain lessons that cannot be learned from theory alone. I thought I had things under control until I realized that even in the most obvious situations, I still allow myself to be carried away. A lot of that comes down to immaturity. Maturity is not about controlling everything, it is about learning to govern yourself. And lately, I feel that I have been governing myself badly, impulsively, emotionally. Realizing your own immaturity can be uncomfortable, but perhaps that's exactly the kind of realization that marks the beginning of maturity. Maybe I am a little better than I was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and many people spend years believing they are in control without ever noticing their contradictions. More important than collecting opinions is developing your own judgment. Listening to men talking about women, women talking about men, psychologists, friends, and older people can all be useful. But maturity, I think, lies in filtering all of it. Human beings are far too complex to fit into neat formulas. The more you get to know people, the less you believe in universal answers about them. There are so many people online trying to help, delivering perfect speech and beautiful, nice advices. Then, when you look more closely, you discover that they are doing the exactly opposite of what they preach. Nobody is perfect, everyone makes mistakes, but I do not want to become that kind of person. I do not want to speak like a coach about things I barely understand, unless it's simply an opinion. I would rather admit that I'm still learning. Ciao.